Have you done it?
No intro. Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Betting Show with me, your host Andrew, joined as always with Adam. Adam.
I'm here. That's all you need to know. What more do you want?
Adam, as always, we've had a game already played. We like to start off and talk about that first. So the first game, it was the 49ers at the Seahawks, 36-24 to the 49ers. I've watched all of the game. I am surprised that the stat line for Geno Smith is completed 30 passes, because the way it started, I thought he wasn't going to complete anything other than a couple of dump offs to the running backs. How do you feel about the game?
Yeah, he struggled a little bit, didn't he? There was a few errant passes, I think. Yeah, I was a little surprised. I felt like the Seahawks would put up a bit more of a fight. They've still got a few injuries, haven't they, on the defense?
Yeah, and they
And
just picked up more as the game went on as well, didn't they?
yeah, it was tough for them defensively. So that was, I think that's where it kind of went wrong for them a little bit, because I think they're one of these teams that they're going to be able to put up a decent amount of points in it every game that they play. But if the defense isn't strong, then they're going to struggle a little bit. And they nearly, at one point, it felt like they were coming back into it, and it was sort of feeling a little bit like the 49ers Cardinals game all over again. And then Geno rocked up and did what he what he did. Yeah, that 49ers team, I think it's got a bit of a soft underbelly to it at the moment. That the defense isn't quite as strong as what I think what we all saw last year, certainly, but what we all thought this year as well. So yeah, they got a win. I think they kind of got away with it a little bit. But yeah, they probably deserved it in the end.
Yeah, I think it was a kind of a must win, because they would have slipped to 2-4 and had three conference losses already, wouldn't they? And also they would have blown double-digit leads in all of those, wouldn't they? So it's hard to come back from that as a head coach as well. So.
Yeah, it's a funny one with them, because we were talking about this on the review show when we were reviewing the Cardinals game with the 49ers, and it kind of felt like they were a good chunk ahead against the Cardinals, and almost like they came out in the second half and almost like, oh, we've got this in hand now, was how it kind of came across almost. And again, it kind of felt like that was a similar thing this week, where it was almost like we've got it in hand, we're far enough ahead, and had the Geno been a bit more accurate, then maybe you've got a different outcome. And I'm not saying that they think they're better and it doesn't matter, but it just kind of is a bit surprising for a team that has been sort of like NFC Championship, Super Bowl the last few years. So it's a bit strange.
Yeah, very, especially when it's only CMC missing, and I think Jordan Mason's played well. I think Isaac Guerrendo played really well as well.
Yeah.
So you can't say, oh well, they're missing him, because the others have filled in well and played well, and everyone's back. So bit of an odd one. It is nice to know, though. I was banging on the drum for the Seahawks to draft a quarterback, saying Geno's not it. I think it's safe to say that I was correct in this. I mean, the amount of missed passes over people's heads the first quarter was shocking. So it's nice to be right, isn't it? I've set two teams. I said Miami should draft a quarterback because Tua is one concussion away from retirement. Geno's not good enough. They need to. And I think I was right about both of them.
And of course, the problem is like this year, the quarterbacks that came out, even last draft, considered very, very good. This year, not of the same standard. So it could be difficult for some of these teams.
Yeah, I think the quarterback hype has already started slightly for the draft next year. I mean, I'm convinced on one, and all of the others I'm unsure of yet. So, Shedeur Sanders is the one for me that I'm going, yeah, I think he's definitely first pick, top quality. There's something there. All the others I've got question marks about. So I think the hype will start there, because they're now starting to say maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks might be drafted in the first round. So
yeah, which is madness, absolute madness.
Yeah. Well, we'll jump into this week's games then. Let's take a look at some of the odds. There we go. It is fun to say. Last week in the F-Tag 5, we actually won some money. We got a winner, albeit that we had a push on one of those. We were 4 wins, 1 push. So, it was all good. The return was quite decent on it. Only halved it a little bit. So, at 26, 27 to 1, even half those odds is still really, really good. And it was the Colts that we got the push on, and I think they were unlucky not to win that game. So we could have had our first 5 for 5 for the season.
Yeah, who did they play? I can't remember now who the Colts played last week. Jags, yes. So yeah, it was a high scoring game, wasn't it? They were a bit unlucky not to get the win there. So yeah, we won some money. Happy days.
Yeah, and I think we're up overall. I think most weeks we've gone 3 and 2. And then we've got the 5. So overall, we're doing quite well at picking these so far. So we're not doing too bad. We'll dive right into it for our first game. I'm on the wrong page here. One sec. There we go. I'm good on my screen now. I can actually see what I'm doing. So the first game I've gone, Adam, is the Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers. They are -6. Let's just check they are still -6. Where are you? Can't even find them.
You got them.
No,
are they not? Are they not playing?
Still -6. It's just because I go down and I pick my favourite ones first, I think, so they're not in any order. -6. They're coming off of a really convincing game from Kirk Cousins last week. 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. Against a Panthers team that I think's now reverted back to its old self. It's had that glory, I think, of going. We've changed at quarterback. We got the win and things. I think they are playing better football, but they're not playing for me at the level of the Falcons are. Falcons are pushing to win their division, and I think they can win this by a touchdown. So the -6, I'm comfortable with thinking. I think they can win this by 7 to 10 points. Adam, how do you feel about this fixture?
Yeah, I quite like it at -6. It's within the touchdown, an extra point, so I quite like that. I think, as you said, that the Falcons are offensively are looking better and better as the season is going along. I think Kirk Cousins is clearly getting fitter and definitely has got more confidence in his arm. So that's a really positive sign. And this Carolina defense is not fantastic. They're not the hardest to go up against. When you think of what the Falcons and how many points they managed to put up in last week's game, it was against the Saints, wasn't it? They played, and they put up quite a lot against a much better defense. This one, Panthers 27th when it comes to giving up rushing yards, 22nd when it comes to giving up passing yards. So they struggle really on both sides of the defense. And I just think that this Falcons offense, to me, it feels like every week there is a stronger relationship between Cousins and his wide receivers. Certainly Drake London seems to be the red zone target, seems to be the third down guy. Darnell Mooney is just getting better and better with him as well. And even Kyle Pitts, you're starting to see that Pitts is getting involved as well. So the fact that you've got 3 guys there who are really good options for him, you do have a really good running back in Bijan Robinson, who isn't really being used enough at the moment. But I think for them specifically, and for Cousins, it kind of feels like the more in rhythm he gets, the better he gets. So I think it's going to be tricky for Bijan Robinson fantasy owners, to be honest. I think that's probably the way the season is going to be a little bit. And but yeah, I think that the Falcons have got a very good team. You can run against the Falcons. I think that Chuba Hubbard will have a decent game against them. They are 29th when it comes to giving up rushing yards. So I think that they can do that, but they the Panthers are going up against the defense that are pretty strong against the pass. They tend to lock it down pretty well. And I think that Andy Dalton, that's kind of what he wants to do. He wants to pass the ball a lot, and that kind of makes me feel like it leans towards the Falcons and quite heavily. And -6. I think they've got the potential to cover this.
Yeah, well, they got destroyed by the Bears, didn't they? So, and I think the Falcons are currently better than the Bears at the moment as a team. So, feeling good about that one at the moment. The next game I've got now, this is a bit of an odd one because it's flipped and flopped and changed around a little bit. I think when it was Flacco that was in, I think the Colts were the favourites. Then I think it got announced that Richardson was going to play, and it moved the other way, and then it went down to 1, and then it's gone back to 2.5. I've taken it at 2.5 because although Anthony Richardson is very unpredictable of which one you're going to get from him. Will he stay fit for a game? I still think he's good enough. The team's good enough, and I haven't seen enough from the Titans yet this season to say I'm going to put them down as a favorite. I think I've done that once so far this season, and they didn't win that one. So I'm convinced that it doesn't matter who's at quarterback in this game, whether it's Flacco or Richardson. I think Colts take the win here. So I'm going to take the +2.5 just in case it is a bit closer, and the bookies are right about this being tight, and go for the +2.5.
Yeah, I think the complete opposite. I don't like this game at all. I wouldn't be going anywhere near it. I think the fact that Anthony Richardson is fit, he's going to play, is what they've come out and said today. I can't back a team with that guy as quarterback. I just can't do it. It's all over the place.
Not even against the Titans, who tend to throw the ball to the opposition and let them score.
So basically what you're telling me is that you're going for the Colts defense to win the game, is what you're saying. I mean, it's possible, but I would argue that Anthony Richardson will probably like to throw the ball to the Titans defense as much as Will Levis would like to throw it to the Colts defense. I can't get on board with him at all. He's so inaccurate. I understand that he has rushing upside and that he brings that to the party, but it's so all over the place. Jonathan Taylor is out. That's a huge loss for them, as we saw last week as well. It kind of ended up becoming Flacco just throwing the ball, which is it kind of works with Flacco because that's what he does, and that's fine. Richardson
they were favourites when Richardson Flacco, but why don't they just stick with Flacco if that's the case?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? And this is, again, I would completely be with you if Flacco was starting, but he's not, and this is the problem. So they're going to go with Richardson, and it's just a mess against the Titans defense that is currently number 1 when it comes to giving up passing yards. I think when you say about the fact of the Colts defense being able to pick off Will Levis, I really do think that Richardson is just the same. I think it's probably fairly equal in that respect. Where I'm slightly concerned is that not only I do think they probably will be able to pick off Will Levis. I think you look at it, the Colts defense is not good. They have not been. They have had some injuries, but they have not been good this season. They're 31st when it comes to giving up rushing yards, 29th when they're giving up passing yards. That's not good either way. And I think the Titans have got a couple of good running backs that can really make a difference in Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. And I think that's enough in this game. I really do. I don't think you're going to need any more. I'm looking at the wide receivers of the Colts. I think Josh Downs is a good wide receiver. Alec Pierce obviously is good for a long bomb over the top. But the Titans have got Calvin Ridley and the Titans have got DeAndre Hopkins. And I know it's just names, but it's just a little bit like it feels very, very difficult to get on the side of the Colts for this particular game. And I think because of that, I probably wouldn't be going anywhere near it.
Fair enough. I understand it. The bookies are on your side as well. I just
I'm not saying specifically that I think the Titans will win. I mean, I have picked the Titans in our poll. I have picked the Titans to win,
how many do you think
but
they win by? Do you think it's by
I
one?
could. I think it's it's a bit like the Jags game. I think you're looking at a 3-pointer. I think they've got the line pretty much spot on.
Could be a 1-pointer. If it's that close, it could be
Yeah,
one
it
pointer.
could
And then
be. It could be.
don't
It's
worry.
not. It could well go that way. I just can't back anything with the Colts at the moment, I'm afraid.
That's fair enough. The next one I've taken is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Saints. Saints seem to have gone back to what we thought they might be, and back down to earth for them. And the Buccaneers still playing some decent ball, but slightly unpredictable. But I think I'd rather back them over the Saints the way they played against the Chiefs. So I'm taking the Buccaneers in this one -3.5. I don't like the number, but I do. Looking at some of the others, I think there's a possibility they could win this one by 7-10. The Saints. Derek Carr is out. It's going to be Spencer Rattler. I think they're not going to want him to be throwing it loads. It's going to be a lot to Kamara, I think, and I think the Buccaneers will be able to come up with a game plan to stop that. So I'm going with the Buccaneers, and I think they could win this by 7-10.
Yeah, I like you say, the number's not great, but at the same time, given the two sides, I quite like the -3.5 here. I think that the Bucks are probably a better all-round team than what the Saints are. Really, defensively, the Bucks have struggled against the pass, but they're kind of mid-table, pretty good against the run, and so I think that, as you say, with Spencer Rattler being the quarterback for the Saints this week, you would expect Alvin Kamara to get quite a heavy workload. Because of that, I think that you're probably going to see that although he will get a lot of the work, I think they will probably limit him to a certain extent, and it won't be too bad on the Bucks. So that kind of opens up the -3.5 as a win. Obviously you've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris Godwin. Cade Otton has been getting more involved as well for the Bucks. I think these guys are just sort of like, they're really good, solid wide receivers that are going to do really well for you. And I can't see the Bucks losing this, to be honest. A little surprised that it's only 3.5. I'm surprised that it's not a little bit higher, maybe veering more towards the 5 sort of mark. But yeah, the Saints. I think the Saints are just going to struggle a little bit because they got a rookie quarterback. It's his first game. You can't expect too much. I know that he's come out and said quite a bit about wanting to build a connection with Olave and sort of like doing that. But I just feel like they're just not they're gonna take it out of his hands quite a lot, I think, like most rookie quarterbacks have done to them with their first few games. So yeah, I wouldn't expect too much from him. I think he'll be all right. I think he'll do okay, but I just wouldn't expect too much. And so yeah, the -3.5 is quite appealing.
Especially when you have got Kamara, such a versatile running back that he's going to relieve him of running and just quick dump offs. So I don't think we're going to be seeing these big bombs to Shaheed like we have done through the season. So I think that's going to be eliminated. It's going to be a different Saints offense this week. So, and the Bucks can just do what they've been doing. So I'm quite comfortable with that one. My next one I've taken is the Chargers at the Broncos at -3. The Chargers have got a very healthy Herbert back. They've got Rashawn Slater back. They've got Joe Alt back. And although Broncos are coming off a three-game win streak, I don't see them getting to a 4-game win streak. I think they've scraped by and luckily got some of these wins. They've kind of just kept themselves in it and then got pushed themselves over the line. I don't think they've been winning them convincingly and putting up big scores and dominating teams. Chargers are going to be tough to play. It's a Harbaugh team. They're going to be really, really gritty, tough, good in the trenches. And like I say, Herbert's back to full fitness, had a bit of time to rest, and Just think they're going to win this one. I feel quite comfortably.
I think this is going to be quite tight myself. I don't think there's going to be a lot in this. I'm not. Again, it's another game where it's. I mean, the over under is at 35.5, and that tells you quite a lot. It's another game that I'm not overly excited about. I actually think the Broncos might have something going on there a little bit, and I don't quite know how, but for some reason they seem to have got it going a little bit, and I think that maybe the personalities is what's doing it a little bit. It's almost like Bo Nix has shown that he's kind of up for it, and that's not that I thought that he wouldn't be, but more just a case of I think that goes quite a long way, and I think that's kind of almost getting his coach on side a little bit. It's like I think Sean Payton likes that. I think he likes his quarterback having a go at him and having a bit of a fight on the sidelines, and I think it kind of probably G's him up a little bit as well. And they they seem like a fairly solid offense. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to do anything special. 20 points is probably what you're looking at most weeks. Like last week, I think was a real outlier against the Raiders. I just don't see him hitting like that high every single game, but like I could see him getting 20, 24 points. The Chargers, yeah, they have got some guys back, and that's obviously really helpful to them. But they still do have quite a few injuries on the defense. But both defenses are pretty much the same. When you look at the rankings, they're pretty close to each other when it comes to what they do against the run, what they do against the pass. Yeah, I mean, I think we can all come out and say that we all think that Herbert is the better quarterback. So therefore, you would expect a bit more to happen there. But the way that the play calling goes, it's so run heavy that you sort of think that kind of takes quite a lot of what Herbert used to do out of the game. And so yeah, I think this is a very close one. I wouldn't really want to be going on either side, to be honest. This was the one where I was a little bit like, I have no answer to this one at all. It's a horrible one, and it could go either way. I just think, to a certain extent, I think I would probably, if I had to make a choice, I'd probably go on the Broncos side, just because I think they're in that sort of momentum a little bit, and they're just sort of doing okay. But then you could argue it the other way, that the Chargers have had a week off. It's a really horrible one. So that's the only reason I wouldn't be going with the spread on this.
Is there any point before the season started and then after week one that you were thinking Broncos are going to go on a 4-game win streak?
No, not at all. It's really surprising, isn't it? I mean, I don't think anyone saw it coming, and
I think we all thought Broncos were going to be better. Well,
yes,
just not this. And
just the fact that they've got they're 3-2. Just the fact that the bigger numbers on that side, that's the surprise more than anything else. So yeah, very, very surprising. And I think last year the defense really struggled last year because there was no offense, and I think we all kind of went, "Oh, their defense has kind of got bad now, and they're not going to be very good." But I think that has shown, it's almost like they've got good as they've seen that the offense is starting to click a little bit, and they're looking at it going, "Oh, these guys let's actually go for it." And I think they're getting good off of that as well. I think they're going to be one of these teams where momentum is going to take them a lot further than what most other teams would.
A little bit like the Broncos when they had Tim Tebow, they went and got to the playoffs and got through a playoff game, and everyone was saying, "Well, it's not Tebow," but yeah, that's from the past, and we're in the present. But I love the matchup between the two head coaches, Harbaugh and Payton. It's going to be a great clash of minds in this.
I think it'll be a fun game to watch. In a weird, I'm not really a defensive guy, but I think it will be an interesting game to watch with the two differences of the head coaches and how they sort of go up against each other. But it's a horrible one to bet on.
And then the last one I went for was the Pittsburgh Steelers, just there below them. Steelers at the Raiders. It's -3. Still like the Steelers. I still think they were a bit unfortunate last week. I think Fields didn't quite have his best game, but the defense didn't play its usual selves. Raiders have had a change at quarterback. Devontae Adams still isn't playing. I think Max Crosby's back, isn't he? But is he going to be at full strength? They were missing 3 key players last week. They didn't really get much going. Do they really want to get much going, or is this kind of like we'll change the quarterback and we'll start pulling away and looking for the future here? Whereas the Steelers were, they're vying to top their division and get into the playoffs. So I'm going with the Steelers for this one. It was a real tough pick for me because when the Steelers are favourites, they tend to let me down. It's usually when they're underdogs that they pull through for me. But I think against the Raiders, I've just seen more from them. They're going to get a lot of pressure on Aiden O'Connell, I think, and Fields is going to get it done.
Was that the first accusation of tanking for the season? Is that where we're going with this?
I'm not going to go full tanking yet for them, but the change at quarterback and happy to let Devontae go. And I just feel like that you're only thinking one thing, aren't you? Now you're thinking to next year, not this year. So in a way, yeah, I can't see them being bothered if they lost. The team never wants to lose, but I can't see them overly being fussed if this is a loss.
Yeah, I agree with the -3 of the Steelers. I think that I think Justin Fields has actually looked all right. I wouldn't say he's been amazing, but I think he's looked all right and he's looked pretty good. And their defense will carry them a long way. I don't think anyone can back the Raiders after last week. After what happened last week against the Broncos, they just fell apart completely. And the changing of the quarterback, it's to me feels a little bit strange. I mean, you saw what you're getting with Aiden O'Connell. You saw it last year, and you're not getting a lot. And I know that Gardner Minshew didn't do great against the Broncos, but he was up against a pretty decent defense in the Broncos. So it felt a little bit tough to bench him and then come out and change. It just seemed a little bit strange. And I feel like you've always got more chance of scoring more points if you've got Gardner Minshew out there than what you have with Aiden O'Connell. And this just feels a little bit like, so what you're going to do is you're basically saying that your defense is going to stop the Steelers' offense, and the defense isn't fantastic. It was 16th when it comes to giving up passing yards, so it was okay for that, but 23rd against rushing yards, and the Steelers are going to want to rush the ball. So it's a strange one, and I don't think, I feel like it's probably more of an indictment on the Raiders than it is about the Steelers' offense being great. This one. But I just don't see how they stop the Steelers from winning this. And again, another one where I'm a little surprised it's -3. I kind of felt like, again, it's another one that should be, say, 4.5. And I know that the Steelers don't necessarily put up loads of points, but I think that this could be a game where they do put up a few more points than what they would normally do. So yeah, -3 for me is fine.
I know they're struggling at wide receiver a little bit. The Steelers think, if you cover George Pickens, it's tough for them. Do you think there's any possibility?
I'm not sure the Raiders will cover anyone at the moment. That's the problem.
Do you think there might be a sneaky conversation being had with Devontae Adams? Do you want to come over to the Steelers?
To the Steelers, I mean, it would make a lot of sense. It really would. It's one of them where it would make a lot of sense, and they were obviously in the market for a wide receiver with the whole Brandon Ayuk thing that went on.
Well, they just didn't want to give up another wide receiver because it was they were looking for an exchange, weren't they? The 49ers, weren't they?
The 49ers were, yeah.
Ayuk. So
whereas I think haven't the Raiders said they want a second-round pick?
Is that all they want for it?
I think so, yeah.
Because I know I came out with a bit of a wild one in our group chat and said, why don't they offer Russell Wilson and like a third or something, and they'll have Devontae off them, but it doesn't even look like they want that much.
The rumor going around is that there's only one team that's offered a second, and that's the Chiefs. And obviously, they don't want to trade to the Chiefs.
Well, I've heard that someone else might be going to the Chiefs.
Well,
Another.
yeah. So I would imagine. I'm guessing they'll probably bring someone in at some point.
Well,
But...
I've heard it's DeAndre Hopkins, so
Oh, okay. Yeah.
which makes perfect sense.
Because you can probably get him a bit cheaper as well because he's older. So,
Yeah, it'll be a
you know,
1 year deal, won't it? 1 year deal
yeah,
for him.
exactly.
Come
Yeah.
and win a Super Bowl with us. Happy days.
I,
And I
I,
think,
I know this isn't betting or anything like that, but I do think we're going to see a few wide receivers moving around this one. I mean, it kind of felt like last year not a lot happened. There was a lot of people built up, but nothing happened. But this year, I feel like there will be a few. There's a few teams out there that are in good spots, but need another wide receiver. So
yeah, Steelers, Chiefs, Bills definitely going to be in the
yeah,
market, aren't they?
yeah.
Adam, there was a couple of games on there you didn't really like that you were a bit worried about. Which games did I miss?
So one that I do like the look of is Lions -3 against the Cowboys. I know the Lions haven't been fantastic offensively this season, but I do think they are still a very strong team overall. The Cowboys have struggled to get things going. I know they beat the Steelers last week, but they didn't put up loads of points against the Steelers. And this Lions defense, although you can pass on them, you cannot run on them. And I just feel like what's probably going to end up happening here is that they'll bottle up the run. The Cowboys will have to pass, and it will be basically CeeDee Lamb and anyone who's got a pair of boots. So
Talbot's looked better this year.
Talbot's looked all right, but it's not great, is it? Let's face it. So I think it's going to be tough for the Cowboys to score tons of points on the Lions. And then the Lions offense, I just feel like after having the bye, I think it's going to be quite useful for the running backs to have had that week off. And Montgomery and Gibbs are going up against the Cowboys defense at 24th against the run. And I just think that's going to be enough. You know, when you've got the likes of Amon-Ra St. Brown and you've got Jameson Williams, you've got all these weapons, Sam Laporta, who no one mentions anymore. You've got all these weapons. I just think it's going to be too much. And so the -3 for the Lions, I like the look of. And then the only other one, well, there was two that were there that I sort of thought of. The -9.5 on the Eagles, it's a big line and it's not something that I normally go for. The one thing I would say before I go into that, I take it we weren't doing the Jags Bears because it's not.
Yeah, I like the
Because
Jags Bears and I
the
like the Bears
Bears
at
line,
-1. But
yeah,
you know what? I didn't want to put it in there because it's a
yeah.
2:30 kickoff.
Okay,
And I
no,
thought
that's fine.
you don't what you don't want in there is your fivefold
And the
2:30
first one goes
finish.
early,
Well, it's
yeah.
all good. I don't mind a late one. You know, I thought about putting the Bills in there. Quite like that matchup. And I was like, I don't mind waiting for one. If you've got all the ticks and you're waiting for one, it's all right. But if you've got a cross straight off the bat, it's no good. But yeah, I did think about putting the Bears in there at -1.
Yeah, that's why I didn't include it. But the Eagles -9.5. I had a quick look at the Browns and their points that they've put up so far this season. They haven't gone above 18. And I mean, after last week, Deshaun Watson just kind of gave up. So it's like I don't see a great deal happening for them. And this Eagles offense, I know it's predominantly names, and they haven't been fantastic, but they've had
Have they got
injury.
AJ Brown back this week?
This is the thing. They've got AJ Brown back. They've got Devonta Smith back. Obviously, you've got Saquon there. Dallas Goedert is still there as well. I just think they're going to rip them apart. I just think that offense is just so strong against this Browns defense that has been beaten up on, and an offense that just isn't doing anything. And I just don't see how this changes all the time that Deshaun Watson is there. I don't see where that's going to change. So yeah, I like the -9.5 for the Eagles. And then finally, this is just me being a bit. I wouldn't back this, but I did want to give a little bit of a shout out for the Commanders at +6.5.
I think a lot of people are going to be on the Commanders. That's a lot of points. Again, 6.5 points for a game that could be close. It could be
So
close.
I wanted to mention it because I do think this has the potential to be a bit like the Ravens Bengals game. Maybe
Hmm.
not to the same extent, but I think that there's the potential for this to happen. Um, if that's the case, you want to go on the plus side. And I like the plus 6.5 for them. I think their offense has been really good. The Commanders' defense isn't amazing, so the Ravens I think will score relatively easy on them. But also the Ravens 31st when it comes to giving up passing yards. So I think that that's going to be great for Jaden Daniels throwing bombs left, right, and centre. So yeah, I think you got a high scoring game there. So I'd give it a shout out to the plus 6.5, but I wouldn't really include it. I'd put the other two in before.
I suppose the joy you've got of this are both coaches when they're going to write up schemes for this. It's the same script of what they've been facing with their own quarterback in practice.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone's massively got the advantage. Maybe Ravens slightly because they can stop the run and maybe stop scrambling from Jaden Daniels, but. I don't know. It's a tough one. There's a lot of them. I didn't want to go anywhere near the Patriots versus Texans
No.
at plus and -7 because no Nico. Mixon's a bit beat up. It's at the Patriots. I was like, do you know what? I fancy the Texans to win, but do I like +7? I don't know. Again,
No.
that's the game with the +9. I just didn't like the 9. I do think Eagles will win it, but it's one of them where maybe they're well in the lead, and then in the fourth quarter, there's a couple of garbage time touchdowns, and they only win by 7. I don't know. A bit of a weird one. I think the other two I liked were the two later games. I quite like the Giants at +3. I think Giants could actually win this game.
Yeah, I think you've got a chance. I think I'm a little. I must admit, because I picked the Giants to win in our pool, and I'm a little surprised that Malik Neighbours isn't back at the moment. That
Still
seems like
struggling
it.
with concussion.
Yeah, that's a bit of an issue. I'm surprised about that. But the Giants' defense is pretty solid,
Yes,
and
it's it.
it's something that I think a lot of people aren't really focusing on that much. And so I think that they're okay in that respect. The running backs look good with Devin Singletary out. I thought that both of them looked pretty decent, and so I think they'll be able to do something there. And Daniel Jones has been okay.
He's not turning
I
the ball over now, is he? You know,
yeah, I know it sounds a little bit odd, but I'm wondering if there is an element of pressure that has come away from it, knowing that basically he's gone at the end of the season, no matter what happens. It feels like that is how it is.
I think the way he's playing, the O line is protecting him fantastically. That O line is great.
Mm,
Great D line, great O line. It's great to see. So he's getting a bit of protection. He's not turning the ball over, but equally, like you're saying, he's not going to be there next year. So is he showcasing to another team, which I think he's doing a good job of, that someone else could
possibly,
pick
yeah.
him up and take a punt on him? Because I think he's doing a good enough job for someone else to see enough and say, well, we'll give him another go. So there is probably an element of that in there as well.
And also, I'm not like having a go about Dable or anything like that, but look at Sam Darnold and how bad he was. And then he goes over to the 49ers and he doesn't play, but he gets a different form of coaching. And then now he's at the Vikings and it's working. I mean, there's no reason why that couldn't happen with someone like Daniel Jones. It's like you could argue that both of them have, roughly around the same talent level that we saw when they first came into the league. So, it's possible that you could have that sort of situation with him, and it's just not working at the Giants.
I think if it's not working with Dable, it's not working with Shanahan either. I think Dable is a bit of a quarterback whisperer, so I'm not sure it's the coaching, but yeah, I think Daniel Jones has improved with Dable. Adam,
Yeah.
have we got some touchdown scorers?
Yeah, we have. We haven't got many that are over 2-1 this week. There was a lot of them were quite a bit lower this week, but and also there's a couple that I can't tell you because they're in the trebles. So,
Okay.
but the ones that I did like the look of that I haven't included, Cade Otton, as we were saying, I feel like he's getting a bit more involved for the Bucks going up against this Saints team that I don't know. I just think that the Bucks will have it in hand in this game. He's 11-4 for any time touchdown. Week 3 he had 8 targets. Week 4 he had 9 targets. So the week 5 he had less. I think he had 4, but the game script didn't really work for him against the Falcons because it was kind of more of a, sort of tit for tat kind of like shootout type game. And I don't think that'll be the case here, because I think that the Bucks will probably do what they normally do, which is be pretty all right. And then I think that you'll find that the Saints just won't be able to score on them. So yeah, K Dot at 11-4, I like the look of. For the Chargers Broncos game, not really expecting too much when it comes to touchdowns, but one guy that I think is worth mentioning is Quinton Johnson at 5-2. He's scored 3 touchdowns in 4 games, and I think that Herbert, although he probably won't be passing as much as what we were used to last year, I think he's still passing the ball a fair amount, and that Quinton Johnson seems to be the guy on sort of bigger plays, doesn't he? That they're going to. He's up against a tough defense in the Broncos, so it's not a fantastic one, but at the price, I think he's probably worth looking at. And then finally, for the Raiders against the Steelers, it's Brock Bowers at 11-5. I just think that you saw last week what he can do. He had the big touchdown last week. I know that was with Gardner Minshew rather than Aiden O'Connell, but I think over 2-1, I think he's a decent one to have on side, and I think he's just going to get a lot of targets, Bowers. And if they do manage to get towards the end zone, then I think that Bowers is probably going to be the first guy that they look at, given the fact that Devonta Adams isn't playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's between Bowers and Myers, isn't it? They're the only two that really get involved. I don't really like anything else on that. He's 21-10 now.
Okay. Still over 2-1. You can have him. He's not bad.
I won't go through any I've seen, just in case I don't want to spoil like I did last week any of the trebles. But I'll go with my treble first. I picked it and I put it in. I might need to reevaluate it because one of my guys has shown up on an injury report. So
excellent.
I'm just going to check his odds while I'm here. I mean, he's still the same odds, so I don't know. I've gone with Tucker Kraft at 15-8. I've taken Tank Dell at 13-8, with Nico not being there. I know Tank Dell hasn't got involved at all this year, and Xavier Hutchinson's been involved a bit more, and Cade Stover's probably been involved a bit more. But I think this is the time that they need to start working him in. If they're going to be missing Nico for any period of time, then they need to start working Dell back into this offense and showing him more targets and giving him more routes that are specific for him to get involved. So I think this is the week against the Pats. Maybe it comes through, and I got him at 13-8. And then last of all, another one, bit of a safety net. I was 50-50 of which one I wanted to go for, but I put in Mike Evans at 5-4 over Godwin, which I did click him, and then I changed it and put Evans in instead. So
Evans against the Saints.
Sorry?
Evans against the Saints.
Yes, why not? Why not?
Doesn't he? He has fun, doesn't he, with their corners?
Don't you worry about this.
What does that come out to?
16-1.
16-1. It's not bad. I must admit, Tucker Kraft was one that I looked at, but kind of chickened out a little bit because of the injury report. He's got a groin injury, and I'm not 100% sure.
I put the bet on before it came out.
Right, okay. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Tank Dell, he's got to get involved. He has to get involved, surely, in this one.
They've got to script up more for him. They've got to. If they're gonna try and win games, they've got to.
Yeah. And Mike Evans, I mean, I think every week you can put Mike Evans in a treble, and he'll probably, more often than not, he'll come up for you. But
you could probably have a double every week of Evans and Godwin and be fine and come out up at the end of the year.
So yeah, it's not a bad one. My early touchdown treble, Terry McLaurin. He nearly got in. We had him last week. He nearly got in last week. I think he's got a good chance. As I said, Ravens defense 31st against passing yards. So I really like the look at Terry McLaurin this week. Tony Pollard is 11 to 10 against the Colts. The Colts cannot stop the run. He's the number one running back for the Titans. Will Levis can't destroy him that much. So Tony Pollard. And then I kind of don't want it to happen, but I kind of do want it to happen because he's on my fantasy team. McBride for the Cardinals. The Packers were not very good against tight end, and at 11 to 4, I do think that McBride is a decent price. Put the three together, 21.64 to 1.
I like the first two. Really, really like the first two. So I might be
Yeah, I
making
know.
I might be making another treble that's got those two in and maybe trade out McBride for someone else. I don't know. Not sure about the McBride one. I think he's always got potential to get in the end zone every week.
He gets so many targets, and I just think that the Packers will try to, in the same way that every team who plays the Cardinals is going to do exactly the same. They're going to try and take Marvin Harrison out of the game. And I just think that McBride is the red zone target if that's the case. But yeah, he's 11 to 4 for a reason.
I mean, you mentioned that you put McLaurin in and he nearly got in the end zone. I was just waiting on Jalen Daniels for my treble to come in, and he nearly got in the end zone 3 times. Like literally just outside of getting in. So frustrating.
Yeah.
It's been 3 weeks in a row now that I've got 2 early ticks on my treble and just been waiting on one more, and I just haven't quite got over the line. So fingers crossed it's this week. We thought the Eagles game. I'm going to just quickly look at this before we do it. We thought the Eagles game was going to be high scoring. Is the odds
for the touchdown scorers?
Yeah.
I think the concern that I had is, although I think that
they're all really short.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas Goedert is 15 to 8. He's the biggest one. But if you've got Devon Smith, AJ Brown, and Saquon Barkley out there, I don't think Dallas Goedert is gonna get in. And yeah, I mean, you're talking what, 13 to 10, 6 to 5. I mean, I wouldn't like. I mean, they should. To be brutally honest, Barkley, Brown, Smith. Probably, you could argue Hurts. All 4 of them should probably score.
Yeah, probably one of those games where just Saquon just runs forward and then.
Yeah, exactly. You just know it'll happen, won't you? It'd be something like that.
My late treble. We've mentioned 2 of these guys already. So my first one is Quentin Johnson at 5 to 2. As you said, he seems to be the go-to guy for the touchdowns. I did think if he's the one that gets marked by Pat Satan, then maybe I should look at Lab McConkey getting in. But I'm convinced of his height and the way he's played so far that he's got a good chance of getting in the end zone. My other one was Kyle Pitts. They said after that game where he had no targets, wasn't in the game, scored no points, they said, we need to start working him into the offense a bit more. We want to use him. So the following week, we're going to use him more, in which we saw him have, 8 catches for plenty of yards. And we're going, yes, he's back in it. So I feel they're going to continue with that. He's 7 to 4. So I like Kyle Pitts as well, maybe getting involved again this week against the Panthers. And then last of all, I put in a guy that last week we could put him in every single week and he was automatic. Not quite been that this season. And that's a guy you're a big fan of is Amon-Ra St. Brown at 5 to 4 against the Cowboys. All of that together comes in at just under 21 to 1. It's 20.65 to 1. So feeling quite comfortable about that. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I think I like Quentin Johnson. I think he's got a chance of scoring in this one. Like Amon-Ra, although I do think they're going to go run heavy, I must say, against the Cowboys. But I do like Amon-Ra and Kyle Pitts. Yeah, I can't back Kyle Pitts, I'm afraid. He'd probably score, but it's just one of them where you just.
Well, I think last week was the week to get on Drake London, wasn't it? And I think his odds have come in.
Yeah,
a
the
bit.
price has gone
Right.
for Drake London now, definitely. But Kyle Pitts is he's not a bad one, but I don't know. I think that it's London and Mooney are the two that Cousins looked at first, which is why in my late touchdown scorers I have gone for Darnell Mooney at 15-8. I just think that he didn't he get 16 targets or something stupid last week. I don't see it being the same, obviously, but I just think that Cousins likes him, and he's throwing the ball to him, so I think there's a chance. I've gone for George Pickens for the Steelers at 11-5. It's quite good odds, and I just feel like the Raiders are just you can score against them, and I know that Pickens is the number one guy, and so in theory he's got the hardest hardest defender up against him from the Raiders. But I just think at the price, I think that he's not. Justin Fields is capable of throwing him a touchdown, so I think that Pickens this week is a good price. And then I kind of really struggled with the other two. I really didn't want to go to the Chargers Broncos ones because I just don't think there's going to be a lot. So I went with the Lions and the Cowboys, and they're all quite short, so it had to be a short one. So I just went with CD Lamb because I just know he's going to get a load of targets. He's 20-21. He's very short, but I think he'll probably score against the Lions defense, who are 27th, I think, against passing yards. So I quite like Lamb for it. 16.96 to 1.
I think I found my treble I'm going to have.
Okay. I mean, I'm hoping you're having the two that you've just said, but
Oh no, I really like the two that you had in the first one, and I really like one that you've had in the second. So I'm having another one.
McLaurin, Pollard, and Mooney.
Correct, you've got it. I think I might have that. I like it.
It's not bad. It's 15-8, 15-8, and 11-10. So you're probably looking about 16, 17 to 1.
I think that's the one, Adam.
Yeah.
You've convinced me of those three players quite highly at their odds as well. So I really like that one. So yeah.
Well, that's what I'm here for. So
Well, that's why we get you on. That's why me to throw out absolute carnage and you to rein me back in and tell me the proper odds and where I should be putting my money. That's how it works. Works well. But that is all we've got time for, Adam. So good luck to anyone's teams that are playing this week. We have got a game in London. So, all eyes will be on that. As you may have seen on our socials, a few of the guys from the franchise tag are down there, been at training, been at media, lots of stuff going on there. So keep your eyes peeled on all of our social media at the moment because there is lots going on, really exciting times. But till then, guys, thanks for joining and keep it with the franchise tag.